anything.
Flowers are beautiful.
Yeah.
So you've talked in many places that I've read about the children's books you read growing up, and Enid Blyton came up quite a bit. And I think that's one thing that the Indian context and children's books really shares in common. But I was just thinking, how do you sort of transition out of that without violently hating them? Those books. I haven't fully managed. So.
No, I think, I think that's a good question. I don't know, but I just did. But it might be because I generally think of literature as a big house with many rooms, right? And I like the idea of many different kinds of stories. So, yeah. So I mean, Enid Blyton was a very important part of my life, and I will never discount that. And those books made me happy. But at the same time, I'm so happy that I discovered other kinds of books. And it wouldn't even have been a problem when I was growing up if I had also read as many books that reflected my experience. I just didn't. And I think that affected the way I approached writing initially. And so I'm really happy that I'm over that. But, you know, those Enid Blyton years were good years.
Wow. I like the poise with which you deal with it. But would you consider writing children's books as...
I would like to, as an idea, but my vision is too dark, so I don't know if I can. I don't know how to, but you know, you never know. Maybe sometime in the future. I like the idea. I think it's a very important. I mean, I think the whole idea of catching them young is fantastic. I wish I could write children's books, but in the next thing you know, somebody will be dying or somebody will be having violent sex or something. So.
So you also grew up around the university environment. So, I mean, the level of culture capital you get through this university environment. When you first went to the university, you talked about how people were sort of uncomfortable with how much you knew about their culture and Western things. So what was the thing that surprised you most about the US?
About the US?
You really weren't prepared for in terms of stereotypes.
That's interesting. What surprised me the most about the US? I don't know. I think in general, if anything, it was really that they had no idea about my world. Seriously, no idea. But I probably shouldn't complain about that, considering that, I don't think people have an idea in India either. And people stare at me on the streets here, and then a man just asked me, "Do you like reggae because of your dreadlocks?"
God.
And I said, first of all, they're not dreadlocks. There's a difference. This is called twisted hair. It's my hair that's twisted, and he's looking at me like that. Seriously, out there. So maybe I should. But anyway.
No, I mean, I can just say this now. We're horribly racist.
I just found in and it's not a sort of subtle staring. People, curious sort of stare. They go like that. I mean, I've just experienced it everywhere, in Delhi, here in Jaipur. But just to go back to the US, actually, I haven't thought about it like that, about what I found most, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's just the idea that you're going to a place where, because of America's cultural power, I watched Sesame Street growing up, and then I was suddenly among people who just had no idea, had nowhere to place me as this African who, shock or shocks, could speak English, Yeah.
Did you find yourself sort of weaving a narrative to combat this, like just an easy way to sort of tell people in your face way, this is where I'm from?
I think a number of things to adapt. One of the things that I'm most ashamed of is that I then tried to adopt a kind of Americanism, which I have since very happily discarded. But, by my second year in college, I had managed to find ways to say things like, "Can I have the water, please?" Because I wanted to sound as American as possible so that I wouldn't be seen as that different. And when you're a child and you're impressionable, you're a child, 19, 20, and you're impressionable and you just really don't like all that much attention, you find ways to try and compensate. And then later, when I became, I suppose, more, when I just realized there's just no point in trying to be what you're not. Right? So I would say, yes, and then all the questions about Nigeria and Africa. Initially, I was just completely resentful, and then later I realized, for most people, it's really just not knowing. I mean, there's a hostility that you realize is just racist and horrible, but then on the other hand, there's just curiosity that really comes from a place of just not knowing. And that I don't mind. So I sort of say, well, yes, Nigeria was colonized by the British, and we do speak English and all of that, yeah. So it was kind of...
I'm interested in this teaching writing.
Yeah.
So can you talk a bit, you've also taught writing in the West.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about both those experiences? I mean, basically, what has teaching taught you?
That's actually interesting. I like teaching because it teaches me a lot. I learn from my students, and it's lovely to see. In Nigeria, I think for obvious reasons, I prefer teaching in Nigeria. And it's just seeing people who actually, there's a kind of, for the people who really want to write in Nigeria, there's a raw hunger for it. The people who want to do what they need to do, who just sort of are really, and I think when you're in a society that doesn't really prize literature necessarily, you say you want to write and people tell you, go become a doctor. And so if you're living in that society and you learn and you nurture your love of literature, it comes with this kind of, I see it, I like to call it a hunger, and I see it in a lot of my students who apply to my workshop, and I love that. And in the US, there's less so. Sometimes I feel that what I find is people who want to be writers, but are not necessarily interested in the writing. Because in some in their minds, I think there's a glamour to being a writer, which does not exist at all in Nigeria. There's no glamour attached to being a writer, and so the people who want to be, you find, are quite happy to do the writing, if that makes sense.
A little while earlier, you talked about the possible hostility you can feel for being published in the West. But I'm actually interested in that publishing market. Because, for writers in the third world, you're often, I think your writing awards it, but you're often pitched in this, they're often pitched in this, look, here's ancient wisdom and recipes from, Africa, South America, India, whatever.
Yeah.
And your writing really avoids that, but what do you feel about the market?
No, I think that there's some African books that I just will never read. There's some books that, there's a certain kind of book that I'm just not interested. And those books do fantastically well, often outside of Africa. And I have no interest in them. But I also understand that I guess it feeds into something people need, otherwise people wouldn't buy them. And people should buy whatever they want to buy, but it's not my thing and I'm not interested. And I think that, the question of that whole hostility and whatnot, I think, and it's not just me, the Nigerian writers who are published outside Nigeria, but I read in Nigeria. And I really read. And so you realize, Nigerians are not stupid. They know what I mean? So if they're reading those books, it's not just that because some white man told them this is a good book. People are not stupid. It's because they actually find something worth reading in those books. And there are also the other kinds of books that are often the foreigner writes in Africa. It's either some sort of, exotic, maybe it's a travel thing, and then they do the elephants and the lions and the giraffes. And I don't see anybody in Nigeria reading those books because they're not interested. So, I think people also know what they like.
And do you want to talk a bit about your literary influences? What do you like to read?
I read everything. Everything good. One of the reasons I wanted to come to India is because I like Indian literature. And one of the reasons I really want to go to Sri Lanka is because I particularly love this novel called Reef by Ramesh Nsukka, which I adored and which just lives in my heart, and that's why I want to go to Sri Lanka. So it just for me, it's how powerful literature can be. And because I read so much Indian fiction, there's a sense in which I sort of come to India with a kind of confidence. Oh, I know India. I read R.K. Narayan when I was growing up. Oh, I know India. I've read, and in a sense, I do know it from its literature. There's a novel called Light in August. It's called Light in August, right? Yeah. No. That's Faulkner. Sorry. Oh Lord, somebody Chatterjee. Do you know who I mean?
Yes, English August.
English August, yes.
Chatterjee.
Yes.
Yes, oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So Faulkner wrote lighting. But yeah, that book I also really liked, and really, I mean, and I well, maybe Jhumpa Lahiri is more Indian American, but sort of I like her writing as well. So just having read Indian literature, and I remember once a friend of mine saying to me, the reason I like those Indian writers, they're like us, she said. And in a way it was funny, but I sort of understood. It was, and the similarities, it's sort of a country trying to get a sense of itself, a very multicultural country, and of course having had British colonialism in common, and so there are things that are similar. It's in Blighton, it's it's the similarities in yeah.
I read this piece in The Guardian, which I just love. You wrote about Harper Lee.
Oh yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird. Yes, I love that book as well. And it amuses me when some people sort of are angry about how something about how she has these racist things in the book. I'm like, yes, because she's writing about a racist time. I mean, a novel is supposed to show us. It's not sort of supposed to become some sort of theory of. By writing that book, I think that was a wonderfully anti-racist act, and I love that book, and I think the writing is lovely. Yeah, I really like that book. I think right now probably the American writer who I think James Baldwin will be the love of my life in the American sort of, right now. It might change tomorrow.
But someone from that time, the Harlem.
Yeah, I mean, I have this, in the same way that I have a romance about Sri Lanka, I have a romance about the Harlem Renaissance and their writers, yeah. So I sort of have, I have this sort of wonderful, and there's a novel called The Street. It's by Anne Petrie, and she's not as well known as many of the other Harlem writers, but it's this sort of really wonderful book about the single woman trying to raise her son, and it's Harlem. It's the 1940s maybe, and what's interesting is how contemporary it feels reading that book, and then you realize it's just really powerful. That book I also love. It's called The Street.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's useful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was fun. So no, you should read The Street. It's a really lovely book.
I mean, as you might imagine, I've read Zora Neale's.
Yeah.
James Baldwin, I absolutely love.
I love it. I think he's fun, and in some ways, actually, I prefer his non-fiction to his fiction.